Hello and welcome to another season of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by prep coordinator Tim Martinez. And guess what, Tim? We're back and we're ready to go for the 2024-25 high school sports year. Welcome to everybody who followed us last year, and welcome to any new viewers that we might have. Tim, we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves, talk about what we do here at the Columbian, but also talk about our high school football preview, which you can find this Saturday in the Columbian's print edition. It's a special 32-page section, and also some of the content that we're going to talk about who we think are the league favorites in all four local leagues, and of course why we might be wrong. So for those of you who are familiar with us, you no doubt know that we pride ourselves at the Columbian in our local sports coverage, and that means Clark County high schools. We love getting out to all the games, all the events, whether it's football, volleyball, cross country, even golf. And so that will continue throughout the fall, throughout the winter, and throughout the spring, culminating in our second annual All-Region Award Ceremony. I felt that the way last year ended with the All-Region Award Ceremony at a sold-out Kiggins Theater was just the perfect capstone to our year last year. So I can only speak for myself, but I think there's a ton of enthusiasm going into this year, and what we want to do to even build bigger on that.
Yeah, it was a great year last year, and a great way to finish the year. And, you don't really know how that thing's going to come together the first time through until you actually do it. And we felt pretty good the way it came out, and we're looking forward to doing it again this year, bigger and better, and make it even a better event in the year this year.
Like I said, we're going to cover all the sports, that go on in fall, winter, and spring. But in fall, I think anybody who knows the area knows the enthusiasm for football is unmatched. And so what we do every year is we put out a special section. It'll also be available in PDF format online, but be sure this Saturday, August 31st, to go pick up a copy of the high school football special section preview. We have a great story by Meg Wachnick talking about four of the most impactful and versatile players in the area that you'll be seeing running all over the fields this fall. But we also take a look at each team, stretching all the way from the schools up in Cowlitz County, east through Stevenson and Columbia White Salmon. But if you want to know who the key players on the team in your neighborhood are, be sure to pick up a copy of this special section.
Yeah, it's, if you don't get a chance to actually pick up the printed newspaper, because, there's people tend to go online for a lot of the stuff that we do. But if you want to pick up a printed copy, it's a great day to pick up. Go out to the market on Saturday and pick out the Saturday Columbian, and the special section will be inside that.
So one of the things we do in that special section, in addition to having a great cover story to introduce you to maybe a trend or an outstanding athlete, we do make time to introduce you to every team that's in our area. And so part of that is how they stack up in the leagues that they play in. So we sort of take it upon ourselves to make a little bit of do some predictions. And we often hear, you don't like us because you didn't pick us first. And it's like, well, we're just going on what we think. And I think last year, the 2A Greater St. Helens League showed that it's basically a roll of the dice. Take it with a grain of salt. So what we're going to do today is, Tim, you're going to explain why we chose the teams that we did in picking them to be the favorite in each league. And I'm going to be the contrarian. I'm going to say why you're wrong and why a different team that I picked is going to be the winner of that league. So let's start with the 4A Greater St. Helens League. And I think it's a pretty strong case to make that you're going to verbalize right now why Camas is the team to beat.
All right. So just to clarify here, these are not my personal picks, but the staff picks. So usually what happens is a different reporter will report on a different league, and then after that reporter has talked to all the coaches in that league, the reporter will say, well, here's where I think the predicted finish will be, and then we share it with each other, and then we have a little bit of a like, well, I think maybe this team should be higher or lower. Really, this fall, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue in that. It was more like, I'm going to yield to you because you talk to all the coaches. So, so we'll start with the 4A, and we're going to put the Camas Papermakers as our predicted league champion out of that 4A GSHL. The Papermakers have been league champs going back to 2019. So they're perennial powers, and they bring back a lot of experience on both sides of the ball. They got 7 starters on both sides of the ball coming back, and they bring back an all-league quarterback in Jake Davidson, who threw for 2,400 yards. And then, they have a new coach this year who's not really all that much of a new coach. It's Adam Matheson. He spent many years at Mountain View. He was an assistant last year under Jack Hathaway. Now the two have sort of flipped roles, where Adam's the head coach and Jack is an assistant. So there's really continuity going in there. The only, sort of area where maybe the Papermakers don't have a lot of experience is up front. But they have, Camas always finds a way to kind of they've always got great depth, and they bring up great players in that front line. And I'm sure Adam and his coaches are going to get the Papermakers ready for the season ahead. So that's why we went with the Papermakers.
And I'm going to tell you, in spite of all the recent history, in spite of Camas not losing to this team since 2011, in spite of us picking them to win the league last year and it not happening, I'm going to tell you why I think Skyview is the team to beat in the 4A GSHL. Yes, Camas people direct your comments to me on social media as to why I'm crazy, but Skyview, they're going to be battle tested by the time they enter league play. They have one of the toughest non-league schedules in the area. Not only do they start with a team from Hawaii in week 1, a team that by the time they touch down in Southwest Washington will have played 3 games already in their schedule. They play 5 teams in their non-league schedule from Oregon and Washington that reach the playoffs. This includes 4A state runner-up Graham Kapowson and Oregon perennial power West Lynn, coached by the way, former Camas coach John Eagle. Since 2021, no team in Clark County has won more games than Skyview. They have 21 wins over that stretch. And you talk about how important senior leadership is. Well, Skyview has that. This is a team that last year outlasted every other team in the state playoffs from Southwest Washington, aside from Seton Catholic. Seton Catholic obviously made the semifinals in the 1A, but the only team to make the quarterfinals was Skyview, outlasting everybody else. And this is a team that returns almost everybody from that roster. They have 5 returning all-leaguers, including 2 D1 recruits, Gavin Packer, who's signed with or who's committed to Boise State, and Noah Thomas, the big 6'6" lineman who has headed to Oregon State. So Camas, they have the flashiness, they have the history, they have that kind of inevitability about their program that, just they're going to always find a way. But all streaks are made to be broken. And so I'm going to go out a limb and say this is the year Skyview turns the table and shocks the 4A Greater St. Helens League. So moving on to the 3As, who are the team, or which is the team that we think is going to beat everybody in the 3A Greater St. Helens League?
Yeah, I know. I think coming out of the spring practices and stuff, and we were looking at the 3A, and it was kind of like it's kind of up for grabs. It's kind of wide open, and so the question is like, I think Evergreen is a team that has always been there. I mean, they reached tiebreakers the last 2 seasons, and for that second playoff spot, and then ended up losing those tiebreakers. They've always had talented players. They just haven't been able to put it all together. And I think the last year they went to the playoffs was in 2019. I don't think they've won a league title of any sort since 2007. They were in the 4A for many years, and then they've been in 3A. But this year, it's kind of like, well, why not Evergreen? Why not Evergreen finally cracking through and coming away with a league title? They bring back an experienced defense with 11 or 8 of the 11 players there on that side of the ball who have some sort of experience on defense. Plus, they've got a talented array of wideouts, speedy, athletic players like Ryder Kepler and Josiah Alanis. Ja'Kai Clardy, and then the junior Terrence Sarion. Just a lot of weapons there. The one sort of question you have to, for the plainsmen as you go into the season is that at quarterback, they're going to be sort of battling and choosing out between a freshman and a sophomore. But fortunately, they get all of September to work that out. All those games are non-league games before they jump into league battle in October. So they'll get some experience and playing time. The other teams in the league, they all have some sort of question mark hanging with them. And so we think this year, evergreen.
Strong case to be made, but here's why I think Kelso is the team to beat in the three-year St. Helens League. You talked about how every team kind of has question marks. Well, Kelso doesn't have question marks at two of the most important positions on the field. That is quarterback, where they return an experienced signal caller in Tucker Amrine. They also returned the league's best running back in Aiden Mintanya, a 1,000-yard rusher who led the 3A St. Helens League with 15 touchdowns last year. They have speed on defense. They have a deep receiving core led by Bryce Collins. And then you have the trademark Kelso physicality down in the trenches. This was a team that was much better than its record. You look at it, it's like, oh, they were 3-7. What happened at Kelso? Why was it such a down year? Well, you can make the argument it wasn't really a down year, being that they came one play away from knocking off the eventual league champions Mountain View in a game that went down to the wire up there in Kelso, and they also dropped a game on to Prairie. Basically, that came down to the last 10 seconds. So you flip those, and Kelso is your league champion. They survived the tiebreaker at the end of the year and made it to the state preliminary round. So once again, Kelso always seems to find a way to make it through that gauntlet and into state. So if you are talking about a team that has been kind of old reliable, maybe not league championship reliable, but always in the mix, that's Kelso, and that's why I'm being a contrarian and picking Kelso for this year to be the league.
All right, so we have Evergreen and we have Kelso, so clearly that means Mountain View's got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Because we can be completely off, and it'll be the Thunder, and they come in with, they were the league champions. They won 9 games last year, and
they have, a new coaching staff led by a state champion caliber coach and Sean McDonald. So I have a feeling Mountain View is going to kind of embrace the dark horse role, and looking forward to, while you and I are talking about all these other teams, they can just get their game right and ready to shock some people once the league season starts. So that's the fun of the football season, is what happens on the field makes everything we talk about here in late August moot. So speaking of being rendered moot, that's what happened in the 2A Greater St. Helens League to all our predictions last year. No league was as wacky and wild as the 2A GSHL. So good luck predicting this one. This
is another one where I'm going to pick a team and you're going to pick a team, and then some third team's going to come through and surprise everyone. Last year, I remember when we kind of put the predictions first time through, I remember looking at Woodland and thinking, I think Woodland is a little bit better than where we had them originally ranked. And then like in week 3 or so, I think they played Columbia River and they lost to Columbia River. And then I was thinking, maybe I was wrong about that. But then the Beavers got it together and they raced through and they won the league title at the end of the year. It was kind of funny that their only league loss was to Columbia River, which didn't advance to the playoffs. But that's just kind of the way the 2A GSHL was last year, just teams knocking off teams. So trying to pin down, and last year, the thing was with the 2As is like everyone brought back an experience at quarterback. Well, this year, everyone's trying to replace that experience at quarterback. So we went with the favorite in the 2A as the Richfield Spudders. And this was a stat that I kind of caught me a little bit off guard, but we had in our preview that the Spudders have been had at least a runner-up finish for the 5 years, and I think the 5th year they won the league title.
Yep.
And I was like, really? They were runners-up last year? And then I remember that there was a 3-way tie for second place, and that the Spudders kind of were the odd team out in that tiebreaker, and they had to go up and play Tumwater. So, but they bring some experienced players. They're going to have nearly 100 players in fall camp this year. So they got strength in numbers. Landon DeBeaumont is going to step in, and he's a junior now. He's going to be the quarterback, the younger brother of Logan DeBeaumont, who kind of split the quarterback duties with, was it Braden Malilla?
Yep.
In the past few years. So he's taken steps at JV before. So he kind of is going to step in that role. He's got Clyde Stevens as a running back who put up some good numbers last year. Noah Stromberg as a receiver. Again, there will be depending on some younger players to step up and fill some roles. But I think Scott Rice said it, the Spiders have to get to a point where just being a good team is not good enough, and we need to make that next step. And so that's why we're going with the Spiders.
Well, obviously, it's a roll of the dice anytime you're talking about the 2A Greater St. Helens League, but I'm going with what I think is as much of a sure bet as you can find in that league, and that is any team that has Elijah Anderson on it. Woodland, he was the engine that made that team go. More than 2,500 all-purpose yards. Having him, who, you put him in the backfield, put him out at receiver, put him anywhere, new coach Glenn Flanagan said, except maybe the offensive line, and they'll be fine. But what he's going to do is really alleviate the pressure on Woodland's new starting quarterback, sophomore Mike Belvin. And, no team, even though, obviously they're trying to replace head coach Sean McDonald, who we just mentioned is now at Mountain View. Nobody knows Woodland football, I think, better than Glenn Flanagan. He's been, part of that school, part of that community, part of that program for darn near 30 years now. And he's going to be leading a defense that returns 8 starters. And so you have a dynamic playmaker in the defensive backfield in Elijah Anderson, but then you have returners up front. You have a strong linebacking core. So in a league that had the hallmark of uncertainty, go with the old reliables in a stout defense, a do-everything playmaker, and that's why I'm thinking Woodland is the team to beat still in the 2A Greater St. Helens League, a league that really hasn't had a team repeat as league champion in quite a while.
Yeah, there's been a different league champion. There was Ridgefield, and then Washougal, and then Woodland. Who's not to say it won't be Hudson's Bay or maybe Washougal again, or maybe Mark Morris takes a jump with Mike Peck being up there at coach again. So I think it's going to be a wild and very interesting season in the 2A Greater St. Helens League.
Well, talking about interesting seasons, if you are a fan of a program making program history, no season last year was more interesting than Seton Catholic's. Seton Catholic broke a whole bunch of new ground for their program, the most successful year that they've ever had since starting up more than a decade ago. But they're a team that should be a contender in what I think is going to be one of the more interesting leagues or certainly Southwest Washington, if not the entire state, and that's the 1A Trico.
Yeah, so I was the one who did the reporting for the special section for the 1A, and all the coaches were sort of unanimous in saying, well, it's Seton La Center at the top. Seton La Center. And then I try to see if I can try to pry which one they thought was better, or which one they thought was the favorite. And different coaches were like La Center, and then other coaches were like Seton Catholic, and it was like a toss-up. And it very well may be a toss-up. It may come down to that Week 9 game up at La Center. But when trying to pick who, it was kind of easy to kind of do the Camas thing and just stick with the one, because La Center's won league titles going back 5 years now. But I kind of see, even though La Center and Seton, they both bring up a ton of returning players. They had a lot of juniors played big roles for them last year. They're back as seniors this year. I kind of see La Center as this sort of consistent level, where I see Seton's arc kind of going like this. Like they've kind of been growing and getting better. And I think last year was maybe an early arrival for what they could possibly do. And maybe they surprised some of us, not just making it to the playoffs, but advancing all the way to the state semifinals, where they lost to Royal. And then I was talking with Dan Chase, the coach there, and he said, yeah, and then Royal kind of opened our eyes, tells us how much further we need to be to contend for that title. But the Cougars come into camp with that attitude. That's where their eventual hopes and sights are set on, a deep run into the playoffs again this year. And I think, they just have a core of experience coming back all over the field. running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, guys up front. And I think that's why we're going to give the nod to the Seton Catholic Cougars.
Well, before I go into why I think that pick is wrong, I will give a tip of the hat to some of the playmakers that Seton has, namely Joe Kalarami, like Elijah Anderson, is one of these do-everything types of players. But I'm really curious to see how the offense continues to evolve under a quarterback that's now a year older, a year more talented, a year more knowledgeable, and that's Colton Gesser. Everything I've heard about the way that offense has developed, it's a ton of, reads at the line of scrimmage pre-snap, and just a very complex, dynamic offense that should have teams guessing.
Yeah, I was out there the first day of practice, and they were kind of, sort of doing the initial steps on that, and so certainly he's going to have a lot of options to go to when he's out there taking that ball from the center snap.
But how can you pick against Le Center? You talk about the old reliables. I kind of, go with the old faithfuls when I'm trying to do prognostications, and no team has been certainly in this area more steady over the last really decade than Le Center. They've won 9 out of the last 11 Trico League titles. They've won the last 5 in a row. Like you mentioned, they return almost everybody from last year's team, with the caveat in that the 4 seniors they lost were really impactful players, led by the, certainly one of the top linemen in the area, Ryan Kowalik, who's now playing college at Idaho. Garrett Manu, Jalen Ward, they were, just great athletes that could impact the game all over the field. But certainly when you talk about Garrett Manu last year, he got hurt early, and that forced quarterback Houston Coyle into action, who really adapted well to that position and now is the undisputed number 1 at quarterback for the Wildcats. So you talk about an experienced quarterback, athletes all over the field, and experience all over the field, and a winning pedigree. That's what you have at Le Center, and that's why it's so hard, despite of all the good things that you can say about Seton Catholic. When these two teams faced last year, Seton had that game won, and then Le Center scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes to steal it. So I'm kind of the mindset that until you knock off the champs, it's hard to pick against the champs.
Yeah, I think it's actually what one of the other coaches said. It's like, well, they're the champs until you knock them off. So the one caveat to my prediction with Seton Catholic is that the 2 teams will meet week 9, so it's November 1st at Le Center. So that might be the thing that kind of tips, because Le Center plays on grass. It's November, could be sloppy, could be wet, could be slick. Maybe that helps the Wildcats. Who knows? And maybe it doesn't have a factor at all. But and then of course, so we pick these 2 teams, and then maybe Kalama surprises everybody.
I was just about to mention them. So. I was just about to mention them. It's like that's one of the reasons why I think the Trico is so interesting, despite a lot of teams in that league being really evenly matched, kind of below Le Center and Seton. You look at Columbia, White Salmon, Stevenson, Castle Rock. Any of those teams could make a claim for the 3rd and the 4th berths into the district playoffs. But also there's Kingsway, which is always they're building their program into something good there. But Kalama, they're just a few years removed from winning Class B state championships, and they bring one of the best players in the area in Aiden Brown. Again, one of these do-everything players who's going to be their quarterback. And then they have a playmaker like Drew Schlangen, who is not only a running back, but might even be a better linebacker than he is a running back. And so it would be just, par for the course, I think, when you talk about the unpredictable nature of high school football, for a team like Kalama to make the jump into the Trico League and knock off one of those top 2 teams. I remember last time Kalama was in the Trico, I think they won it their last year. I
think so. Yeah. So, it wouldn't be hard to imagine the Chinooks coming up and knocking off one of those teams, Le Center or Seton, and then setting up some three-way tiebreaker for the title at the end of the season. So, Yeah, it should be an interesting rundown in the Trico this year, especially with Columbian joining back into the league, and we're looking forward to some of those matchups.
Well, predictions, they're made to be broken, but they're also made to get you all excited for the season that's to come. It's going to be a great year starting next Friday with a really interesting week 1 slate of games. I can't wait to see these teams in person and to get out to all the other sports. So we're excited for this year. We're going to be doing this show every week, so be sure to check us out on 360preps.com. Check us out on Instagram, check us out on X, formerly known as Twitter, and hey, we might even dip our toe into TikTok, which I'm going to have to consult my 16-year-old daughter about what the heck that is and how to use it. But we're always looking for new ways to highlight these athletes in the area and tell their stories and get the word out. So be sure to join us every week here on Varsity 360. We'll see you out at the field and back here.